Alright, a bunch of offboarding mainly around OMAD. Can you build muscle? Is it okay to do that? Is it okay to fast more for more time? Then one, does it work for Crohn's? Things like that, as well as some things from yesterday, but we're touching up on like neural firing. Quick correction, so yesterday, if you looked at the numbers, we can go back here. The neural firing is actually, so we can go 33, yeah. This autonomic pathway, so this is 33%, it goes 2.71, this is 45%, 5, so we said it can go up to 5x. Well, no, looking at the numbers from up here, looking at how much it goes from 0 to 95% and 5 to 50, and you can see the build up here, it probably can go closer to 10x, because it's more of a sigmoid curve. So at 100% MVC, you can probably go 10x, maybe 12x, etc. for autonomic. Yeah. Also, OMAD, if you're in a caloric deficit, I think you tend to lose more, to look a lot more leaner than trying to gain muscle. So it's easier on OMAD to lose than gain, which is pretty cool based on the numbers. I think it's 68% at a deficit, and then you're at, yeah. So, going back to this neural firings and what they mean. So what exactly is MSNA? The best way to describe it, it's for stretching. Any stretching, rapid stretching, and then is going to be your muscle spindle afferents 1A and 2, and then MSNA is going to be your more around delivering blood flow, pretty much that. And so both these increase a lot if you look at the neural firing when you are flexing, which is pretty cool. So there is an insulin, kind of some insulin numbers too, like single digits is a good way to put it, is when you are fasted, and if you have like dozens when you're fasted, that's insulin resistant. And then for post meal, you're looking at 15 to 30. That's kind of like minimal threshold levels to see anything in muscle, preventing catabolism. And here you can see if you're insulin sensitive, you'll easily exceed that. Now insulin resistance is more. So bottom line, it's less to more when you're fasting, and then that explodes upwards when you eat. So these are how you know you're keto adapted. The easiest way is and the interesting thing is that it's almost like ketosis and fasting both try to level out the playing fields, upping kind of your immune system, downing any sort of roller coaster of any sort, and that includes things like electrolytes, things like even breathing approaches more of a kind of deep breathing, deep slow breathing. So you're just more stable overall. The body even tries to, kind of like covered in yesterday, tries to be anti-catabolic, but also anti-anabolic. So it's looking for stasis, which is great for longevity, because that is hallmark of longevity, is no roller coasters. And so here, if anybody is worried about OMAD or just eating twice a day, you can, even if you're very underweight, so the BMI, you can see here, all of these are underweight, and like, for instance, 6'2", 130 would be considered underweight. This is normal range. It's higher, but like, if you look, even the underweight people that are very tall, skinny people, they can last 30 to 45 days as long as they have water and electrolytes. Because the main thing you die from is you have an electrolyte imbalance and you run out of water, which ends in low blood volume. And so that's pretty much how it goes. And if you're average, I mean, this is 2 months that you're not going to die. Like, so OMAD is fantastic. In fact, even a 2 to 3 day, and we'll look at those fasting numbers, is great, right? As long as you have water, because without water, you're not lasting very long. Especially in hot climates, you could die in 2 days. So bottom line, fasting is awesome. And if you eat at least once a day, you should be more than good. And you could be like, well, if I'm chronically ill, metabolic syndrome, it actually helps more if you have overweight, obesity issues, or even just health issues in general. Overall, that brings you back to stasis, eating 1 meal a day. And down here, there's a lot of Crohn's videos, and we can say now, they typically do better with fasts. They say that it resets, and this is just a meta-analysis of all of this, it either resets the gut, which does make sense because there's, and we can look at it right now, there's motility that it does. It resets the microbiome, so it kind of narrows it to a family of more stable microbes, and then it definitely downs inflammations. So, and these two work, all of these work synergistically, so this kind of helps do this, and this go hand in hand, because less inflammation means better microbes, because if you have worse inflammation, you're in active flare, we know the microbiome changes for the worse. So fasting seems to be pretty great for most, and if you eat 1 meal a day, you have to work up to it. This individual, a pygmy, they do from eating normally to eating 1 meal a day, and the first 2 days he was bloated, he distension, he like couldn't move, even walks, he was like, oh, I'm gonna, like, I can't hold it down. And then he actually eat bigger meals feeling lighter. So it takes some time to adapt, but it also makes sense if you look at, and let me kind of keep going here. So there is autophagy, and there's another individual, I think it was this individual right here. She is incredible. Talked about meta-analysis, and pretty much for IBS, IBD, fasting helps by making sure so most people get really sick by eating a lot, right? Throughout the day, over and over, because of constant snacking, add a caloric surplus, and they're under stress. Well, if you eat once a day at the end, so OMAD, even if you eat a lot, and this is what most people report, you actually feel a lot better. Especially after you adapt, you feel extremely well, because, well, if eating a lot every day, caloric surplus, not great foods, all made you sick, but eating once towards the evening, not like right before bed, but towards the evening, leaving 3 to 4 hours before bed, would make sense that would heal you. Even fasting, like even a day or two, and some individuals go on a day and a half, 2 days fast, and you can see the numbers for, and immune kind of peaks. And I think there's an individual, maybe it's down here. I do believe it's this video, but that talks about your IBD being because of a bad bug, like and a lot of IBDs are. There is a bad bug. It destroys the gut wall. It's usually after an infection of some sort. Well, guess what fasting does? It absolutely skyrockets. Yes, autophagy, but it skyrockets your immune system. Okay, so your immune system goes up. I believe. Okay, went ahead and found it. So here you can see This hours fasting is kind of the closer you get to 24, your kind of immune system is just phagocytes rise, so your immune system gets stronger. Look at what happens. So let's go back a little bit. When you eat, it drops hard. Then it starts getting stronger. Kind of dips here, which is interesting, but then look at 24 hours, which would be around here. It's getting really up there, and then if you extend past a day, well, now your immune system is tip-top shape, which makes sense, and that's when you would take care of those bad bugs. You had on top of that the autophagy, so recycling the bad cells, right? That might be, the DNA might be damaged, might be leading to a more IBD-like state.
In rodent models, there was an actual reversal of the pathology, so the damage to tissues that occurs with IBD can actually be reversed by the stem cell generation.
And then you have this stem cell proliferation, so, and you're not eating anything. So you have like 4 to 5 stacking benefits that nothing's touching the gut wall. You're recovering more. Your immune system is hiding, taking care of anything else. And you are metabolically extremely flexible. That is probably why people get super sick by chronic eating throughout the day. And then one meal a day, or even some fasting every now and then, water fasting, is so strong. Okay, so I did want to share something kind of, and these are things that I cannot find on YouTube, that I've kind of discovered on my own, and I'm going to start sharing this diary, just in case it helps anyone else. So, I've had issues where, and maybe it's due to chronic illness, I'm pretty sure it's autoimmune, because I have like a psoriasis flare-up, which is actually pretty good, that now, like a lupus-like rash, which now is actually doing much better, thanks to this. I've eaten only 2 meals today, in a 3-hour window, so I'm feeling pretty great. After the second meal, it was big, but I'm doing exercise, making things go out, down, and yeah, feeling pretty great. But anyways, one of the things that I struggle with is almost like I can't contract. So my nerves, like I used to feel super light into, like I could contract easily, and it got to a point where I couldn't contract at all. Like there was no, it's the scariest thing ever. It's like kind of like paralysis, but I can still feel what's going on. I just can't generate a contraction. I will tell you, with fasting, helps definitely. And again, I'm 21 and 3 fast eat window. One thing is, if you press down, so you can actually sense, like if you think about your pinky, where the pinky is by just focusing in on it. And then you can really focus in at a granular level and get to what probably people will say mind in the muscle. So very granular, you can focus on the tip, the base, etc. And then you can actually, on another area, you can kind of flex. So you can flex the tip, flex the base, you can feel it getting stronger. And there's a kind of gamut to both of those. Opposite of flex is really relaxed, and you can kind of focus on that, or I can focus on my other pinky, or both, and then you can get really granular and focusing on it, and then you can start flexing. That's why all the neural firing kind of research came about, is because yes, when you flex, you will feel a lot more everywhere, and I found recovery's faster. So pains that you have, you will feel the pain, but then the pain will go away. If you don't flex, you only feel the pain if you do something really bad, and the pain does not go away, so you recover slower. Which is, people might probably exercise to some sort of recovery, along with blood flow, warmth, better digestion, vagal tone, all of that, but there's probably some neural component. And if you can't flex, normally that's great. If you now can flex kind of at will for very specific parts of your body, you want to be doing that, as long as it's not too much, because then you're trying to contract. But But yeah, it definitely helps. And so also one thing she mentioned in the study, the video that we were just in, MS, if you in rodent models, the fasting 24 hours helped a lot with MS. I can tell you with the neural firings, it helps a lot. You don't have to have MS to have brain fog, to feel sluggish, to have slower movements. And I can tell you, if you fast, all of that will go away, and you will have the opposite. And again, MS or not. So, and I've been feeling significantly better there as well. So muscle grid is what I call if you're granular on the muscle, like very, very specific. And this is what we just talked about. Also, not sure if anybody else feels this, but if you're eating, you can actually concentrate on your kind of taste buds, smell, and if you press down, kind of like you would flex something, you press down, you taste a lot more of it. It's not the same as pleasure. Pleasure, at least for me, is like if you uptake, like you feel like a very, kind of like like a pleasure enjoyment to the food. And if you do that enough upwards, it actually calms everything down. So if you're reacting to food, you'll see like your, almost like a reaction meter, I want to say, is like your reaction is like going up. That's not good. But what happens when your pleasure goes up, your reaction actually shoots downwards, and so you're very calm. You're super calm, composed, and eventually all the food that you eat is going to be very calming. So that the more you enjoy, probably have to do with mindful eating. There's a lot of eating disorders that even like IBS that are cured solely from eating mindful, and that is always shocked me, but that's probably why. Because there's some sort of maybe vagal, maybe microbiome signaling saying, I like this, but you have to actually focus on liking it, because if you've lost how to enjoy, you gotta get that back and do it every day, and you do train. So I've noticed significant, like there was this tea that I would react to. Now it makes me calm. It's been about 3 days since I've been doing that pleasure, which again is different from taste. Both are awesome, but I'd say, yeah, and different, but you need both. And all of that is different from hunger. So for me, when I eat, I usually get a pleasure signal upwards to the left when there's something like when I've had enough food intake, like maybe calories, I don't know, but it's food. Then there's another one to the right that means I had enough ferments or probiotics. And when those two happen, and I eat a very high fiber, I eat like at least 80 grams of fiber a day. When both of those two are together, when both of them shoot up, they combine and then go upwards, and it feels. That's probably what heaven feels. When they say heaven on earth, I tell you, it feels incredible. And so, and you can also, if those go, you probably. It's very closely related, not exactly, but it is very closely related. It's hunger, where hunger you can focus on your stomach. And for me, if I feel like it goes up and I feel like a pang, like a sharp, it's not pain, it's a pang, like almost like a nibble on your stomach, you want to eat a little more. If it goes down and you don't feel any pain, you're good. And sometimes there's a delay between you eating and it getting there. But anyways, that's really cool. I take kelp. I eat kelp. It's just dried kelp. I can tell you, it's basically what can land on the edge of your nail or like a quarter of your nail. You do not want to take a lot of kelp. It will leave a bad taste in your mouth. You'll also start getting dizzy if you take, or if you eat too much. So just very, like if you can see it, that's it. On the spoon, that's it. Yeah, and apparently, so spitting right after a meal, I don't know if you're losing the fiber or probiotics or the taste, or really showing like almost like you're disgusted with what you ate, but it doesn't help. So I try to delay any spitting. Like if you're using toothpaste or something like that, I try to delay that because it doesn't help the overall meal digestion. Let's put it that way. Okay, so let's cover this one first and then go up. So in a 2024 ALS meta-analysis, global presentation, they showed that they had one slide dedicated just to this crazy stat. It said there was 700% more likelihood that there would be an ALS reversal in people who did carpentry or woodworking or anything that involved touching wood, but like granular and really being hands-on with wood. Nobody knows why. I can tell you, I'm very in tune with my nerves, which is awesome, and the neuron, like the feeling, as well as how much you can flex. If you have any wood, and preferably like from a tree, like bark, we're talking like a stick, so if you go out and find a stick and you're holding it, even if it's touching your body, but holding it especially, you feel much more nerve. Like you can feel so much more. It has such a higher intensity, and you can flex much harder. Would I recommend carrying a stick with you on your on your pants, or like if your shorts are like this, like have it just on the side, touching your skin, or like with you in bed, like you can sleep with it in your hands? Absolutely, like 100%. Why? I don't know. There's a variable Z we don't really know yet. Maybe evolutionarily monkeys swing from like trees all day, and there's some sort of, we know there's genes that fight against ALS genes. So if these genes are like bad genes flipping on, these guys say, oh no, we gotta take care of that. Those might be activated by wood. Just a thought. But it was a shocking stat, and I definitely feel it. So wanted to share that. And then so this one is probably the strongest thing out of all these. So when I eat, mainly because of the severe intestinal issues that I've had, one of the things is reacting to a food, so something that puts you in a flare, and you know a flare from not a flare. It's not just about being bloated or something really bad, like it feels like you're going into nightmare territory, like everything doom and gloom. It's probably the worst feeling ever. And then for the next 24 hours, if you're eating a lot of ferments and meditating, fasting, if not, it can be longer. It can be, if you're eating everything on Gundry's no list, it's going to be like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you're not going to be able to eat anything and feel absolutely dreadful with no energy. So if you're eating everything from Gundry's yes list and you ferment and you just react to a certain food, it's much tighter. But the goal is not reacting in the first place, not being set off like past that threshold. So it's definitely a threshold, and if you get past that, and it's interesting because the reactions from food, even people in MCAS, like the nose dripping, and I've noticed a reduction. Like it's gone now. Like there's no nose drip. No itchiness, and none of that set off. There's a trick, and I really, it's really awesome, because if you are in this world, and this is how you do the trick and trigger the trick. So you want pleasure in your gut, like you know that uptick pleasure. You want to feel that same uptick pleasure, kind of in your whole digestive tract, from here all the way down. Yes, to your anus, but mainly it's kind of towards your small intestine, and kind of feeling pleasure. I don't know, if like sending pleasure almost. It helps you calm everything down. Very similar to what you do here during eating. You just extend that downwards, and it calms everything down. It takes foods you're going to react to, and it doesn't. And I find this to be much more effective than any meditation, most exercise, any sort of stretching, breathing, it's much better. So that's why hopefully it helps you. But what you want to do is, if you do that, it's great. It will calm the reaction then and afterwards. So it's almost got like a immediate effect and then a persistent effect. It's not permanent, but it definitely helps. We're talking minutes to hours, but if you want to extend it even further, what you do is you want to go deeper into this world. And how you do that is, so let's take, let's take this gold lid. This gold lid is cool, like you can look at the gold lid. If you really focus on the gold lid, and you kind of, it's hard to say, I'm just going to explain as best as possible. You kind of press down on it. And you press down on it with kind of like your mind, you're like looking at it, but you press down with focus. And you start to notice, oh, okay, there's all these scratches, there's some probably my salt from my hands, and you press more. You press more and more and more, and eventually you break into, and then you can see everything much clearer, like there's an indent down here. This is forming like a cool formation. There's even higher density of blotches here and around which is no surprise since that's where the indent is. And then you can press even more, and then break down again, and then you start seeing things much clearer. I mean, and they're just much more beautiful. And there's like levels, so the more you press down, and there's a limit, but the more focused you are, the deeper you can go into this world. Only into this world. It's very important. And when you do that, just beautiful things start to happen. Great things start to happen. And one of those things is you can actually press down, and imagine you're pressing down on that gold lid or this camera I'm talking about, and the mic I'm talking to you through, and it gets to a point where now that pleasure thing in your gut, you can press down and go deeper. And so when you go deeper and you're doing that pleasure, and it's very important to do that pleasure, you almost like rewrite the code and you loosen up. It's almost like everything that's tight and bad, you loosen it up, and it becomes kind of flow-like, loose-like, and really pleasureful. And if you keep going, the deeper you go, it seems like the more persistent it is. And it probably has something to do with like some sort of, like, I know in hypnosis they do certain things like that. I'm not for hypnosis, I've had bad experiences with that, but it's a very similar thing where you go deeper and you can change the underlying code. But in this way, it's awesome, because in this way, you're going deeper, enjoying more of this world at a much higher rate, which is great. But that also gives you a secret, and yes, that pleasure thing works on the gut, let's say for, I don't know, an hour afterwards. But if you go deeper into it, sometimes there's been times where it's been like I think 2 or 3 days, and I've been eating things I shouldn't have, and things are right? So that probably has to do with another kind of video we did around gene editing and some sort of pleasure, and something about the deep, I don't know if it's subconscious, I don't know, but all I'm saying, it definitely works if you do that, and then you'll break out of it, and it's good to ground back into reality, and that was reality, but more like, looking at this straw I have right here, or the lid, or this computer screen that I'm staring at a document. So all that is kind of to almost ground you back and take you away from that pleasure reset, like a rewrite code, so it commits it. And it's very important to do pleasure, because when you're deep at that level, any rewriting is possible, so you want it to be good rewriting, right? Good, pleasurable enjoyment, and that gets amazing results. So yeah, and then you're up here and you focus and then you're back. So let's continue here. Again, we talked about how if you're keto, you're more around here, whereas if you're high intensity, you're breathing a lot, a lot of carbs, that's higher. And again, this is more long-term longevity, etc. You have to lose 2 liters of blood to have organ failure, and most of the time when they take blood in a vial, it's 5 milliliters instead of 2,000 milliliters, and they might take 5 tubes, again nothing, and you're well below any sort of symptoms for most people. And even blood donations are right below that, probably strategically so. That's cool. And then, so fasting can increase human growth hormone by 2,000% in obese individuals. So it looks like the more insulin resistant you are, and the more you have eaten a lot, the like larger, like fatter, quite literally you have more fat, then that leads to a more potential for baseline growth hormone. Whereas if you're pretty lean, you do experience a 2 to 3 baseline, but it's not that crazy rise, and this counteracts the fact that you're not having as many calories in your first diet, which is awesome, because that means, hey look, I'm getting all these inflammation lowering, longevity, like ketosis benefits, autophagy benefits, and I'm not really losing that much on things like muscle building, right? So, and you'll see from a lot of these guys that down here talk about OMAD and building muscle. They do build muscle, not as much, but again, that's expected. But you definitely don't lose as much long term. So it's, again, talking about ketosis, fasting, kind of that steady state. You can have steady state up, and that's great, because that's more sustained, like empirically. Because fast weight off equals fast weight on, but steady state weight off equals weight off, and steady state weight on equals weight on. So, this is just more or less, so in 2 meals, and this is probably going to be closer to 2,000 because this was mixed with water, so it's probably half of this stuff. It's still pretty awesome. If you replace that with nuts, like pistachios instead of your coconut, and take away the beans, you get something like this, which is pretty much a Gundry ketogenic 2 meals a day. And he does OMAD for 6 months, but on the weekends during that OMAD, he eats 2 meals a day. So 1 meal a day, and then to 2 to refill, and then 1. So, and here's what we talked about, the short fast that do help. Prolonged fasting, probably not ideal from everything I've seen. And I don't know if I made a video on this, but the EENs, most EENs, if you look at the ingredients, they're all like on the Gundry no list. They're like foods that will rip up your gut. So the main thing I believe is probably you're giving it liquids, and you are literally, protein is like through the roof, and I mean it's, and you're probably like that's pretty much the only explanation, because if you look at a lot of the ingredients, it's like dextrose, all the oses from sugar, and the milk is like it's milk protein mainly, and then they'll have like lectin derived like corn as your starch. So it's pretty not great. It's probably just because it's got the perfect liquid nutrient to inject into you and pretty much replenish everything that you were losing, and it's a lot of calories too. So that's probably why it reverses, but only in the short term. In the long term, it actually backfires. Whereas something like SCD, or even the semi-vegetarian diet, it's slower. It's almost like ketosis or fasting. It's slower, but you have a steady long-term increase, and you definitely beat EEN if you look at the studies long-term. So this probably quickly corrects biome, nutrient deficiencies, calories, etc. The other way slowly corrects those for a much better, longer steady state. We talked about this, and this is kind of where, if you're eating a lot and you're not used to it, mainly has to do with your body getting used to the distension as well as the emptying, so like the secretions and things to deal with that distension, and some of your biome shifting to that. But your gut does adjust most of the time, and at least for most of these videos that we've seen, it does adjust. You just need to go into it slower, and it sometimes takes weeks, but most did it in just a few days. They were like 2 to 4 days. They were significantly improved. So yeah, hopefully that is very helpful.